welcome to this episode of The Red Cube that looks to explore all topics around workplace culture and employee experience. We are delighted to be joined by a good friend of Great Place to Work for many years, the People Success Director from Version 1, Jarlath Dooley. Jarlath, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Cathal, and delighted to be here and delighted to be called a friend of the Great Place to Work.
Jarlath, how are you getting on with lockdown?
Sometimes when you're answering this question, you're conscious that a lot of people are really struggling with it. I think I've been very fortunate to work in an industry that's doing well through lockdown, and that's the IT industry. And I think very fortunate to work in a company like Version 1 that, has invested so much in the Great Place to Work over the years, which meant we were probably well able to cope with what it threw at us. And the fact we made the best workplace list again this year shows we did something right through COVID. So in terms of work, it's been generally a positive experience. And obviously outside of that, just trying to find ways to keep myself occupied and in a world where there isn't much variety in terms of what you can do. As I said, I just think I'm very lucky with where I am.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, Jarlath. Context is everything, right? So in a way, we're so lucky to have work to be doing and to be talking about, and conscious of a lot of pressures that different industries are under. Jarlath, I think a great place to sort of start would be if you could give our listeners a sense as to your own career journey to date, and as well, Version 1, an exciting organisation. It'd be great for our listeners to learn more about who Version 1 are.
Yeah, I won't go on too long on it, but I will kind of go back to when I was in college, and that's a long time ago. But, what caught me was that the vast majority of people moaned about work and the companies they worked for. And, at that time, work seemed like a sentence rather than a choice. And it was very much external to living. You lived outside of work and you kind of numbed yourself through work. So I think that's why I chose HR as the field to specialize in, and in a hope and a bid to try and change this and create cultures where work was something people actually enjoyed and got much more from than just a paycheck. And I think my early years in banking and American multinational, taught me that it's hard to change these ones. They're just too big and set in their ways. So I opted for early stage, high growth Irish IT companies, and Version 1 is my third one of these, and I joined it 13 years ago. The reason I joined it, and it was a no-brainer, was because the current CEO, Tom O'Connor, and the founders at the time believed that in order to get to the next level of growth, they needed to put people center of their strategy. And they were very strong on operations and customers and profitability. They brought me in to kind of balance that out on the people side. And we were about 120 people back then. And today we are over 1,400. So I like to think that it was a good decision by them at the time, and that people strategy has been central to that growth. One thing I've always looked to do in my career is to move outside of HR. So HR has always been the central role and my passion, but I've also been responsible for marketing, IT, business systems, premises, and in Version 1, acquisitions is a part of our growth. So I lead the integration side as well. And I think that's really important because HR should understand the business in its entirety. I think too many HRDs I meet don't step outside their comfort zone and take on other aspects of the business. And I think this limits their impact and influence on the business. So while my passion is HR, and within that, building great cultures, I've always made sure I've kept my hand in other parts of the business so I fully understand it.
So a broad range of experience across all functions of the business, Jarlath, which allows a better command of the people role, I'm sure, as well. One thing that always fascinated me, Jarlath, from our early conversations was the strategic approach that Version 1 and you have always taken to your people and your culture. How do you go about building that HR strategy or that people strategy?
I think I sort of alluded to in the last question that the first strategic HR decision was to put people on an equal footing to other aspects of the business strategy. That was the decision to bring me in at the time. And what came out of that was our strategic triangle, which is an equilateral triangle of customers, people, and organizational strength. And those who are familiar with our logo will now understand why it is a triangle, because our brand, that triangle, represents how we operate the business. So once you put your people strategy on that level, it just follows that all things people become strategic. And a key decision, was to build a culture that would attract the best talent as we grew. And a framework and a measure of this we decided would be the Great Place to Work framework. We decided that 13 years ago. It took us 3 years to make it to the list for the first time. Here we are 10 years in a row later. And key to that was understanding what made us successful, what made us different. The result of that was documenting, what we call the V1 difference, essentially the DNA version 1. And in that, our core values emerge very strongly. Our balanced approach to customers, people, and creating a strong organization, that strategic triangle I spoke about, our mission of making a difference to our customers' businesses. So this understanding really underpinned all our HR strategy over the years. In my view, it was an essential element in building a sustainable growth business like we've done. So I think it's that foundation made it easy to layer on specific HR strategies as we went along over the years.
Brilliant, yeah. So that's strong strategic intent from the beginning.
Yeah.
And Jarlath, you touched upon there, just over 100 employees to 1,400 employees, and acquisitions being part of the strategic growth of the business. How do you do you have any checks in place in terms of ensuring that you're protecting and building the culture as you grow and scale so fast?
People talk a lot about culture, but my own experience, I don't see that much in terms of designing their ways of working around their culture. And very often the stated culture and the ways of working are very different. We built all of our HR strategy around underpinning and nurturing our culture. So for example, when you're growing fast, hiring is critically important. So we ensured that we put in place the measures to both attract and hire the right people to fit our culture. We introduced the core values into the hiring process, right back at the employer brand, and then right through the selection process. Our performance management reflects our culture of drive, and we were very early adopters of quarterly conversations, or quarterly reviews as others call them, and quarterly objectives. Our no ego core value is reflected in not only in office design, but in our org structure and our leadership style. Our excellence core value is evident in our rewards and recognition programs we run internally. Our honesty and integrity core value underpins the design of our open communications approach. And then that balanced approach I talked about of customers and people and strong organization is reflected in our org design, where we've taken a 1,400 person organization and divided it roughly into 35 mini self-directed triangles, 35 teams who are completely responsible for managing and improving the customer, people, and strong organization sides of their own areas. And we probably touch on things like trust and empowerment later, but they were the key foundation blocks to be able to have those self-directed teams. So it's by building your culture into what you do every day and every quarter, and measuring your results against that. That's the check for me.
I have to ask, the no ego value. Talk to me a bit more about that value.
Yeah, and I think there is a book by Ryan Holiday called Ego is the Enemy, and we've seen it in many organizations and many establishments where ego has actually destroyed them. And often it's just put down to ego at the top, but it's actually ego in the culture. So no ego is basically about keeping yourself grounded, inverting the I, team, and company, where it becomes actually customer, company, team, and then I. So you're always looking to what your customer needs, you're looking to what's right for the company, you're looking to what's best for your team, and then what's best for you. And I think that no ego value is what has really engendered the family feel, and we're all in this together and no one is better or above anybody else. And that's when I say it was reflected in terms of office design, org structure, leadership style. So there would have been no difference in benefits for the execs, managers, people. We all sat at the same type of desks. If you've booked a meeting room and the CEO is in the room 2 minutes over his schedule, you can go in and say, time to get out, I've this booked. So it's right in everything we do. It's probably one where external senior hires have probably struggled the most, where people haven't stayed with version 1 at that level. Very often it may be down to coming from organizations where that element of ego was there. I think all the core values are equally important, but I actually have always placed a great emphasis on the no ego value, because I think it's what is the foundation of something we'll touch on later of psychological safety at work. And I think it's been a key difference for us.
And Jarlath, on a webinar last year, you joined us on a webinar last year, and you said one thing that really interested me. You said that the positioning almost of the culture in version 1 is about building a great place to work, not an easy place to work. What do you mean by that?
Again, this is linked to our core values, and three of them that come out in this way is excellence, drive, and personal commitment. And if you think about them, they're not easy to live every day. Excellence is something you strive for and seldom achieve, but you just have to, whether it's in sport or business or personal life, it's something you strive to do, but it's hard to hit every day. You know, as you said, we've grown from just over 100 to 1,400 people. That takes a lot of drive. And what personal commitment means is you will do what you say you'll do to the quality you said you'd do it in the time you said you'd do it. And again, you know, you're held to account on that. So those are high values to live up to. On top of this, financial performance is not enough, because we have that equilateral triangle. So we look for equal performance on the customer and the people side, as seen in our 10 years of best workplace record. And then on top of this is that growth ambition. When you put all that together, you know, none of these come easy, and they provide a constant challenge, and they require huge amount of passion and energy and drive to achieve. So for people who want to be challenged and to be their best and to develop their potential, it's a great place to work, but it isn't going to be easy, you know. But then that type of person doesn't want it easy. And I felt it was very important we put that into our employer brand, because if you're going to be hiring 200, 300, 400 people a year, you want to be getting your message to the people that you want to attract. So it's not about volume of applications, it's about attracting the right people in. And we know the type of person that's successful in version 1, and it's the people with whom that resonates. So I think it's been a very powerful aid to our employer brand in terms of attracting the right people.
Yeah, and there's an authenticity to the employer brand around that, where people there's no shocks for people. They understand what's coming their way. They know version 1 is a place that absolutely will build the right environment for them to be at their best. But there's also a performance element there as well, Jarlath. Jarlath, I know you have lots of people managers, and as we know, often somebody's experience with work is dependent on the people manager that they report into.
Absolutely.
And like every organization, right, we all have a mix of people managers in terms of ability and capability. Any specific approaches you have around supporting your people managers to be at their best for their teams?
You know, I think one of the things that's common in organizations is promoting the high performing hero types into leadership roles. And we did that ourselves in for many years. And as we started to scale, once we understood that DNA of version 1, we built a leadership program around it called Strength and Balance. And that is teaching our leaders about what the levers are, how we operate in each one, how the core values are the foundation of everything. Where we've been moving to is from excellent business managers who focus on task, plans, organization, results, to a more balanced leader that, you know, still does that, but is more empathetic is encouraging creativity and ideation, that is empowering their people to take risks and to push the boat out. And that has, as well as the head, is also leading with the heart. So that is our Strength and Balance program that, has helped us promote, almost exclusively from within. So we now have leaders who are embedded in our culture, who thoroughly understand it, and then have been given the tools and the coaching around balanced leadership. And it's something this year we will be investing quite a lot in, because the growth trajectory looks that it's going to continue, and we need a lot more leaders. So it's a core part of, I think, the success of having those self-directed teams is having that Strength and Balance program and promoting from within.
And Jarlath, I'm fascinated by things that don't work as well, right? So as we know, right, we introduce practices, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. Any example of a practice that has been introduced in version 1 on the people side that perhaps didn't work as well as you had hoped?
Yeah, we all like to forget our failures. Good question. Anything that's ad hoc or unplanned or sporadic is probably not going to work. So the ones that have worked are the ones that we put the most considered thought into, and that were more linked to the strategy. I think we had very good flexibility in our policies. But while we had flex policies, we were still of an office-based mindset and fixed ways of working. And COVID taught us that. Things we had done, again, maybe ad hoc or sporadic in relation to flexibility, laid the foundation for being able to adapt quickly to COVID, but certainly wasn't as good as we thought it was. I think anything we did which was superficial and wasn't authentic to our culture and authentic to our strategy didn't work. And anything that was core to it was hugely successful.
Great, and it's back to that piece at the start, Jarlath, which is the importance of taking a strategic approach to the initiatives that we look at, and speaking about practices that do work. We were fascinated in Great Place to Work by the practice, the shadow board. Loved reading all about it. For our listeners, Jarlath, you might let them in on what the shadow board practice was.
Yeah, and when first mooted, it was one of those mad ideas that you say, do you know what, there's something in this, but the shadow board is basically, and I don't want to just link it to diversity, although there is a strong link there, but it was saying, okay, we have a number of senior leaders who are of a certain age profile and tenure in the business. The risk of groupthink and the risk of fixed mindset is obvious and real when you have that tenure together and you're all of that common age group and even one primary gender. So what we said was we put together a group of younger people, not long in the business, under the age of 30, that was balanced and mixed from across the business and gender balanced and always balanced. And that would be a shadow board that would work with our corporate board. So, we didn't at the time anticipate COVID when we put it in place. And it was, a brilliant sounding board in terms of seeking their opinion on everything from remote working and how we could make that better, to right up to saying to them, okay, we want to protect everybody in the business. We want to protect the strong organization side. So we're not going to pay profit share. We're thinking of not paying profit share this quarter, just keeping that fund in reserve in case times get tougher. What do you think of that? And getting their feedback on, and they would go back and say, anything you can do to protect jobs is the right thing to do. And here's other costs you can cut. It wasn't just a lip service group we created that we communicated, this is what the business is doing to. It was an equal sounding board where we told them what we were thinking, what we were going, and got their feedback. And then that fed into how we communicated with people. It changed some of the decisions we made and helped us greatly with that transition to digital, because most of these guys and girls are of that digital era. And, we're able to help some of those dinosaurs see how easy it could be. And so it's been fantastic. I've seen the growth in these people. It's almost back to my earlier point of me as a HRD getting experience in marketing and IT and running integrations. All of these people, they've all got an exposure to the business that mightn't get for another 5 years, and an exposure to the full C-suite and board, and they've just grown so much. So, we've had a number of our customers actually come and ask us about it, and we're helping them set them up because they see the benefit in it as well. And we certainly have. It's been a great success, and we're delighted to win that inspiring award for it. So thanks for that.
Oh, very well deserved. What a great demonstration of listening, and what a great developmental opportunity for people who
Absolutely, yeah.
were part of the shadow board. Any example, Jarlath, of where you posed a topic to the shadow board and you changed tact or went with something different? Or
so we work in quarters. So Q2 last year was, we all went in March on remote working, and quarter two was the most uncertain quarter. To share with a group of mainly junior staff the thinkings around pay freezes and not paying profit share, cutting costs. It took a lot of trust on behalf of the senior team, because that could have resulted in a massive rumor machine in the organization, of God, they're going to cut everything. So, and then their feedback about, how we handled things like, because at the time, for example, nobody was booking holidays, so how we could encourage people to still book their holidays, so we didn't end up with 50,000 days holidays at the end of the year. They reassured us that not paying the profit share was the right thing to do, but to hold that fund, and if things improve later in the year, to pay it. And that's what happened. So we paid it actually in November. So it was a good time for people to get it coming up to Christmas. But, it was their feedback on those very sensitive issues at the time that shaped our thinking.
Super demonstration of trust, and putting a meaty topic to the shadow board is so good to see. Jarlath, we're almost coming to our time together. You might indulge me for a few minutes. Just we like to have a bit of fun, and great place to work, as you know. And this is the getting to know Jarlath a little bit better round. So I might just throw some questions at you, Jarlath. Whatever comes to your head, you might shout back at me. So first is for Jarlath Dooley: Netflix or TV?
On Netflix. I haven't watched TV in 2 years, I think. Most of the documentaries on Netflix are brilliantly done. I don't do the box sets of series. So the documentaries are it for me.
I think I'm watching Narcos for the 5th time again.
All right.
For myself.
Actually, there's one at the moment on entry to colleges in the US. Brilliant documentary, true story. It's hard to believe it when you watch it, but there's a lot in there about ego that people can learn just how dangerous it is. So I'd encourage that one.
Very good. We must check that out. Resources that you would use, Jarlath, in terms of if you're looking for some stimulus around culture or people. Any particular resources you like to use?
Anything I can read, but there is one particular podcast stroke show, which is Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu, and he has some amazing guests on it that can teach us all a lot about culture, success, getting through hard times, motivation. It's a brilliant show, and I find it super informative.
Great suggestion, Jarlath. Thank you for that. And you spoke at the very start, Jarlath, about a career history, starting off, I think, in banks, and then moving to sort of a high growth startup type businesses. Any advice that you would have for a Jarlath Dooley starting out on his career?
Never turn down an opportunity for extra experience would be my first advice. And linked to that is, don't get caught in trying to master your comfort zone. And a lot of people do try and master the current job they're doing, and that is important, but I would say always have one foot outside the comfort zone. That's where the growth comes.
Great advice, Jarlath. Jarlath, we really appreciate your partnership over the years and into the future from Great Place to Work point of view. And thank you very much for joining us today on Cube.
Thank you, Cathal, and the team. It's been, as you said, a partnership over the 13 years, and it's certainly made a difference to our business and to my job as well. So thank you, guys.
Red Cube listeners, thank you very much for joining us today. Please subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already done so, and of course leave us a review and tell us what topics would you like us to cover in